So basically what I'm trying to communicate right now is we have your back here at Wayne State School of Social Work, and we are happy to have you here today. So with that being said, I want to introduce to you Dr. Shirley Thomas, our MSW Program Director, who will do our greetings and welcome.
Thank you, Lawrence, and good morning to everyone. As Lawrence told you, I'm Shirley Thomas, and I serve as the director of the MSW program, as well as a clinical assistant professor here in the School of Social Work. In my role as the MSW program director, I work in collaboration with my colleagues to develop new curriculum and improve the current courses that we offer. I also work very closely with the advisors, the admissions office, and student services to make thoughtful decisions about how to best help students succeed in the MSW program. And in that capacity, I want to welcome you to the Wayne State University Graduate School of Social Work and congratulate you on your acceptance to the program. The function of education, according to Martin Luther King Jr., is to teach one to think intensely and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the overall goal of education. Your admission to the program speaks to your high caliber of character and qualifications. You all come here with the desire to be social workers. You are entering the field at a most challenging and exciting time. The many challenges that are before us as a society include those such as poverty, communities in distress, violence in the streets and within the family, homelessness, disregard for the well-being of older adults, and high rates of incarceration among people of color. In addition, the nation is in need of a sweeping social justice reform. Furthermore, as a country, we are coming back from a pandemic, the likes of which this generation has never experienced. Despite the growth in technological capabilities, we have communities and individuals that are alone and isolated more than ever before. We as social workers are truly needed. Indeed, the NASW has issued grand challenges for the profession that address individual and family well-being, stronger social fabric, and a just society. In this endeavor, you must remember that you are standing on the shoulders of giants. Shoulders such as Jane Addams, Frances Perkins, Mary Church Terrell, and Tyra J. Edwards, as well as many that go unnamed that helped navigate our profession through the years. The next few semesters will be full of new discoveries, while you will have the opportunity to build on your previous knowledge and learn to apply social work practice skills in your areas of interest. Our goal is to develop the newest generation of creative, skilled social work practitioners. The curriculum can be challenging, and I encourage you to use the resources that are available to you. You have a faculty advisor, you have the academic support services, there are a number of student organizations, you have the field services office, and excellent faculty who are behind you 100%. Even with the challenges we face as a society and in the field of social work, this is still a most important time because you have the opportunity to be curious and to be passionate. Our school provides that space for students to explore their ideas and link those ideas to what they are passionate about so that they can make a difference in the world. Whether it is a vulnerable population, a community, an organization, a particular intervention, be curious, be passionate, and please be open to new ideas. Okay, please come close to your computer, to the speaker. You can get help from all of your instructors, but you are going to have to learn a lot by yourself, sitting alone in a room. In the words of Zig Ziglar, if you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. I'm delighted that you chose the Wayne State School of Social Work for this next step in your intellectual and creative journey. Have fun, push yourself. As my favorite poet, Nikki Giovanni, says, tassels are always worth the hassle. Thank you and welcome.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Thomas, for that warm welcome and greeting, and for those words of encouragement, for sharing that. So next, I just want to just recognize everyone who has played a part in bringing and making us a great program. The reason that you chose Wayne State University, the reason that you heard such great things about us, is our staff and faculty. I want to start with, of course, our dean, Dean Shirley Kubiak, who is just a huge support to our students. She's always on your side, looking for your best interest, giving you a voice, letting students know that they matter. They are a part of the social work family, and that's what she strives to do on a daily basis. She's not currently able to be here today, but she always provides avenues to connect with her, whether it be through email or even through her monthly lunches that she hosts, where you can connect with her and ask questions, and just get wisdom. So we're definitely thankful for our dean from leading, and what she does trickles down to everything else you're going to see in this program. So we thank you for her. Of course, we have our our faculty and staff who are always supportive as well. They're on the call. There's several on the call today. You'll hopefully get a chance to meet them in breakouts and other areas as well, resource fairs. And then we also just have our academic staff, Office of Student Support Services, Office of Admissions. So we have other academic advisors, not just myself. I'm advanced standing, but we have Jeffrey Jones, who is the advisor for Bachelor's of Social Work students. We also have Naila Burks, who is the main advisor for our core program. And we have our Office of Field Education, who is also on the call, and just all around support. And I'm very happy that everybody has showed up here today. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and move us along. And we're going to go into How to Be Successful by Dr. Debra Patterson, and then right behind her will be Dr. Anwar Najer-Durak. So Dr. Patterson, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Little waves out. Like to see people actually do stuff. Thank you. I'm Debra Patterson. I'm the Associate Dean of Academic and Faculty Affairs. I've been a faculty member here since 2008. It is the place that I love to be, and I hope that you also feel that way. So I passed my first test, which is I unmuted myself, and I didn't go 5 minutes on mute. Cannot wait until in person, and I'll just pretend that I'm on mute. Oh, thank you, Lawrence. Look at that. It's magic. My screen's up there. I didn't even ask for it. So Lawrence, I guess you're controlling the screen unless you gave me control. So I'll just tell you next, and then you can click on the next one. All right, go to the next slide, please.
All right, will do.
All right. So before I get into the areas of success, for faculty who are on this call and advisors, so advisors didn't know I was going to ask you to do this. What I would like you to do, I know we had a video on how to be people giving advice to students, but I also want you to add advice into the chat of what your advice is for students to be successful. So both faculty and advising staff. So there's two core areas. So to get to graduation, these are two things you have to do. You have to demonstrate competencies to your faculty and to your field placement advisors. So you have to maintain a 3.0, you have to earn a B or higher, and you have to have satisfactory grades in field. I use the word that you have to demonstrate as opposed to us giving. We don't give grades, you earn them. So it's a really important mentality to think about, that your job and our job is to assess your competencies, your job is to demonstrate them. The other one is to demonstrate ethical and professional standards. So Lawrence, click over to the next. Thank you. And what does that mean? So the Wayne State School of Social Work, we require you to uphold the NASW Code of Ethics, and we also have our own professional standards that you must uphold. So you can have a 4.0, but if you engage in unethical behaviors, you could be terminated from the program. That is part of the Wayne State University Student Code of Conduct under our program. So it's really important that you're familiar both with the NASW Code of Ethics and our professional standards. And by the way, you'll have this PowerPoint at the end. Lawrence will send this to you. It has hyperlinks so that you can link to all this information as well. Lawrence, click the next so I can give some students these examples of what. There we go. So these are some ideas of what unethical behaviors might look like that could result in termination. First and foremost is plagiarism and cheating. And although I'd like to think students know what plagiarism is at this point, sometimes I get faculty telling me that their students have engaged. So you need to not copy things word for word. You need to give intellectual credit to the original authors of papers. That's pretty critical. Breaching client confidentiality is also something that could result in termination. And I don't mean just sharing something about a client with a friend, which you should not do, but also talking about clients in public space. You should not. Really think about everything that you hold as private about yourself and how you would want somebody to protect that. You really need to protect your clients' privacy and confidentiality. And when I say clients, I'm not just talking about individuals, families, groups, and organizations. Lying on admissions applications and saying you haven't received a misdemeanor or a felony when you have is really important to be forthcoming about. It doesn't mean just because you've engaged in those doesn't mean that you will necessarily not be a part of our program, but we do need to know about those. Making derogatory comments in the classroom, field, and social media. I think sometimes students are surprised that as social workers, we have to uphold social work ethics at all times. And so we really have to be mindful of what we put out there in social media under our names. And I can tell you a couple of years ago, a student did that, and it not only was out there for her family to read about because it was directed towards her family, but it landed in our president's email of our university and our deans. And it was very embarrassing for the student of what she posted out there. So be really, really cautious about what you're putting out on social media. And then inappropriate boundaries with clients in your field placements and emotional dysregulation. So we all have a responsibility to control our own behaviors. Even if our clients are sometimes not always the nicest to us, we don't control their behavior. We can't do that. Agencies will deal with the client's behavior, but our reaction is very, very critical. Bless you. Lawrence, next slide. Okay, so what can you do to prevent unprofessional behavior? So if you have that gut reaction, even if it's small and you're like, maybe I shouldn't do that, when in doubt, don't do it. I also use the general rule for myself is if I wouldn't want my colleagues, my professors, my supervisor, or even my family seeing me engage in a particular behavior, not going to do it. using supervision is critical to talk about. Like, I thought about saying this to a client, but I wasn't sure. Can we talk through that? That's a really great use of supervision. And I know some of you just graduated with your BSW, but go back into the NASW Code of Ethics and really read through it and be really well-versed in those codes. You're going to need to know them for the rest of your life. And I can tell you there are a lot of questions on licensing about ethics, and for good reason. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what can you do to be successful? You're going to hear this a lot. Communicate, early communication with your professors, field placement supervisors, liaisons, advisors. If you're struggling, we need to know early. The thing is the longer you wait to tell us there's a problem, the less options we even have to help you. So even if you're like, I don't know if I should share this yet, I'll see how it goes. Reach out to your advisors and say, I'm not sure if I should share this or who to share this with. They will help you and guide you. You can think of your advisors almost like a triage of trying to help. They might not be the right person, but they will get you to the right person to share information with. Just do not wait. So one thing to remember what I'm saying today, early communication. Next one is really important too. One more. Active participation in your learning. If you're not active in your learning process, you are not going to retain anything in a year when you're out in the field, in 2 years when you're taking the licensing exam. You really, really need to put yourself in the active role. So what do I mean by that? Well, first, let me pause. If it's been a while or you weren't in a BSW program during the pandemic and online education is new to you, I really recommend you do Learn Anywhere for the summer. So summer's our last fully online semester. We're doing a return to normal campus in the fall, but get familiar with online. It will help you. The other ways to prepare is for your class. When you're reading, think about, how does this apply to my field placement? How does this apply to my dream job? Write down questions and bring those questions to class. I will tell you that after a while, if my students didn't ask questions, I would eventually get bored with teaching. It's my students who bring and make the classroom interesting with their questions. They've asked me things I never would have thought to teach about or talk about. It makes for fruitful conversation. And I know that Professor Weiner said this in her advice, which is there's no stupid question, but for students who are worried that they're going to look dumb, what I want to tell you is asking questions is a sign of intelligence. So ask questions, look intelligent, ask questions. It's really important for your education. Go into supervision with questions and an agenda. Be active in the classroom. And integrate what you learn in your field into your courses, bring examples into the classroom, and also integrate your course learning into field. By integrating you intentionally, you actually will put those puzzle pieces together and you'll learn much quicker. Okay, last slide. Final piece of advice. I wanted to tell you that learning is exciting, but it's also anxiety provoking. It can be frustrating. There's points of confusion where it takes a while for things to come together. The quicker you embrace that, the more likely you will enjoy the learning process. Develop professional support system with your classmates. You can do this alone if you choose to, but I'm going to tell you, it is more fun when you have a professional support. And I actually think it's easier for all students when they collaborate and talk with each other and engage. I personally have had students in my classroom who have been lifelong friends standing up in their weddings. So I also think for some students, they really actually do meet really good friends in the program. Finally, you're going to get stressed and you're going to want to throw out all your self-care. Don't do it. If you exercise, do not stop doing that. Even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, every day. Self-care is like exercise. You need to do a little bit every single day in order to be healthy, in order to be able to engage and understand and read and comprehend. So engage in self-care every single day. We have free counseling at Wayne State. Feel free to reach out. They're going to do a bit virtual, bit in person starting in the fall. They do virtual, I believe, still right now. Reach out to your writing coach. Vanessa is amazing, and she is like the kindest person I've ever met. So don't feel shy. Reach out to her, and also reach out to your instructors as well for support. And finally, advanced standing, your final year, it goes by so fast. So have fun. It's a journey, it's a process. It will be a little bumpy, but when you're stressed, go to those Sunday fun days for 1 hour, have some fun, and then go back to studying. So I hope this was helpful is the first part of the key to success. The second part is for you to talk about licensing, which is longer term success. And so one of my favorite colleagues is going to be talking to you about it, Dr. Anwar Najer Direct. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson, and welcome everyone. So happy that you're here, and I'm extremely excited to welcome all of you to Wayne State School of Social Work. So let me share my screen. There we go. Oops. Okay, let's see. All right. Can everyone see it? Is that a yes? Okay. Yes. So, all right, very good. Thank you. I know I don't have a lot of time, and I want to make sure that you have enough time to attend the next session, because I think it's going to be really important to meet with two of our faculty who will talk to you about concentration day, or the concentrations that you're in. But I want to spend just a few minutes, and don't worry, I'll have Lawrence send you this PowerPoint in case you're interested, so I'll be quick. And you'll notice that I put my credentials behind my name, and for the LMSW, I put it in red because you can't put that behind your name unless you're licensed in the state of Michigan. So Michigan is a state that requires licensure as a condition of being able to practice and call yourself a social worker. So we have practice protection and title protection. So, and yes, you're starting the program now, but it's important to think about this, and to think about what you're going to be doing this year as you think about starting the MSW program, and when you will graduate and begin to think about applying for positions and needing your license. So what I thought I would do is to show you, I pulled this from the Michigan Compile Law. So this comes out of the Michigan Public Health Code. It's in the law, and it says that in order for a licensee to perform social work tasks, functions, or acts, as you work, you have to do those tasks and functions, keeping in mind the Code of Ethics for social workers. So this is the statement in the law that says in order to practice social work, you have to do it keeping in mind the Code of Ethics, and that you do your role with that in mind. So why do we have licensure? And if we were in a room, I'd probably ask someone to note that, but given that I don't have a lot of time, I will just say that obviously the law provides consumers with the assurance that you have a social worker working with you who's qualified. And if there unfortunately are situations where someone behaves in an unethical manner, that there is a means for enforcing that licensure for the benefit of the public. So Michigan licenses for health professionals are regulated by the Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. You'll hear the word LARA, and that's the Licensing and Regulatory Affairs with the state of Michigan. And so that's important for you to kind of keep in mind. And this is obviously, it says requires responsibility of the public, and it mandates good moral character, right? So good moral character, as identified by the law, says that this is the propensity of the person to serve the public in the licensed area, in this case, social work, in an honest and open manner. And I want to just remind everyone that in the state of Michigan, as I said, and I'll talk a little bit about this, that you cannot begin to practice social work or even call yourself a social worker unless you're licensed. So when you graduate, think about whether you're going to practice right away, and many students begin to apply for the license. And let me just say that I'm not going to get into details in this because we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to assure you that we as a school do a lot of different kinds of professional development opportunities. So you'll hear from your advisors. We do it in November, right before December graduates. We have a few students that graduate, but then we have a very long, week-long opportunity of professional development series where we talk about preparing for graduation, preparing for applying for positions with resume writing, but also we talk about licensure and help you with that process. So it isn't anything that you have to necessarily keep in your head in terms of process, but I do want to talk to you about briefly the importance of keeping this in mind and why it's important, as Dr. Patterson said, to be engaged in your classes, right? Because the process to get licensed includes an exam that requires that we are, and as the folks who created the exam say, minimally prepared, which means that you engage in your classes, in your field placement, you ask questions. This is where you're really developing your critical thinking skills, your knowledge base to prepare for that road to pass that exam. And it isn't when you graduate, it's now when you begin the program. And that is what I would say. So there are the 3 E's of licensure that the Association of Social Work Boards often say. And education, which you are starting and have started. You'll need to have experience, which is 2 years post-degree experience full-time. It's 4,000 hours. And then of course you take the examination, which I know causes anxiety for some students. It's a high stakes exam. It costs quite a bit of money. And so it's important to note that the ASWB, who creates the exam, has a lot of resources. I would encourage you at some point to go to their website and learn about the exam, how to register, how to order material if you're interested. There's a lot of free material. I'll also mention that, we as a school, and this Lawrence mentioned earlier that our dean is very supportive, and one of the things that she's done is purchased rights to a practice exam that our alums are able to purchase at a very nominal fee. I think it's $20 and you'll be able to practice, but you'll have opportunities, and faculty will we have a practice exam that's used in the classroom. Please engage in those. This is the time you'll begin practicing and learning about this exam, so that when it's time for you to take this exam, you'll be prepared and you'll be able to successfully pass that exam. So again, the licensing and regulatory affairs is what the process to apply for licensure. The exam is through the Association of Social Work Boards. So I always remind students that after you have a license, or when you apply for a license, right, you have a responsibility. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. I've sort of talked about the importance of ethical practice, using your mentors and cohorts, and of course, using your supervision, both in your field placement and when you graduate and begin practicing. These are individuals that will help support you and really add to your knowledge. I mentioned the title protection. Again, you can't say you're a social worker unless you're licensed in the state of Michigan and other jurisdictions that have this. Practice protection, again, this is another requirement in the state of Michigan. In order for you to practice, you have to be licensed. If you're going to move out of state, or if you're living in another, even Canadian students, please check those jurisdictions for the laws and regulations regarding your practice.
Thank you, Dr. Najah-Durack, and thank you, Dr. Patterson, for laying the foundation for how to be a successful student. Very, very valuable information for why students are in the program and for preparing after the program. We're going to move forward in our agenda for this morning. And it gives me great honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Takesha LaSure, who serves as our Field Placement Director, and she'll be talking to you about our Office of Field Education.
All righty. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I was switching devices. I said, as is the case, whenever we prepare to present, something goes wrong and my audio went out on the iPad, so I had to switch. I think everybody can hear me now, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, good morning, everyone. Congratulations on your admissions to the School of Social Work. We welcome you. We know that you all are preparing for what will be a very, very busy summer, but also a busy fall and winter, but will be a lot of fun nonetheless. So to get started, we'll do some introductions. As Mr. Robinson stated, I'm Takesha LaSure. I am currently serving as the Director of Field Education with the School of Social Work, Office of Field Education. Here with us this morning, we have Mrs. Sarah Doyle, who's our Academic Services Officer with the Office of Field Education. And many of you, if you've contacted our office or if you've received any emails from our office, have been introduced to Diane Kennedy, who's the Secretary for the Office of Field Education. So today what we'll do is really just give general overview of field education, which you all know is the internship or placement component of the social work degree. It is the signature pedagogy and a very integral part of social work education. The experiences and exposures that you have in field are anchored in the mission, goals, and education of your program. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about the requirements. We'll talk a little bit about your expectations for the upcoming year. Sarah, I'll have you go back a couple slides. Progress to. There we go. So to get us started, one of the things that I want to, sorry, Sarah, I think I had you going back and going forward. But one of the things we want to have students think about as you prepare for field placement is really how you're situated in terms of the social worker you are, given you all have a bachelor's degree in social work, and the social worker that you're becoming. So one of the things that we tell students to do really at various times throughout the application and admissions process, but also while you're in the program, you know, as you begin the spring, summer, bridge courses, as you complete those, transition to fall, midway through fall, is really to take time to reflect on why you're here, really your compatibility with the social work profession moving forward with the advanced degree, your interest in terms of working, your social, economic, and environmental justice orientation and working with different populations, and also your professional development. You've heard a lot of different things, or you will hear some additional things today about ways to get involved with the school. And it really is an opportunity for you to say, how am I situated and who am I becoming? So one of the things that we do for field is we have an online self-assessment that includes questions that really reflect fit for the profession. You know, students should be thinking about reasons for why they chose social work as a profession, what their educational needs and goals are, but also how they're preparing themselves for competent and ethical practice. There are different sections. One of them is a readiness for field, which really requires students to focus on areas that might present difficulties and also areas that are strengths for them. And it really allows students to say, you know, how do I reflect on my performance? What are tasks that are uncomfortable for me that I may need more support with? Or what are some tasks that I am absolutely comfortable performing independently, or that I want to try to perform independently? And really look at ways of how you develop not only the needed skill and competency, but that needed confidence to perform those tasks, especially as you transition to an advanced year practitioner. But you should be thinking about, you know, what are some things that I can draw from in my BSW experiences, or even just general life experiences and content and courses that really have prepared you for this. So that assessment, again, is on our website. So you can access that at any time to really allow yourself time to sit and reflect and say, you know, how do I find that energy, that momentum, especially at times when things feel heavy and you're questioning, why am I here? And how do I really realign myself with my purpose for becoming a social worker? Next slide. So as all of you should know, we began the placement process back in March of this year, and we've continued that on an ongoing basis. So all admitted students were sent an email with detailed instructions on how to begin the process of securing placement for the upcoming academic year. And the students receive that as they're admitted to the program. So hopefully all of you have met with a representative from our office and have received your information. Next slide. So you received a unique email that looks very similar to this, that have some instructions around how to log into your student detail page, uploading your current student resume on our web-based system, which is the intern placement tracking system. So that email went to your Wayne State address. Like I said, hopefully all of you have received that and started that process with our Office of Securing Placement. If you have not done so, you need to begin that process immediately. Field placements are coordinated through the Office of Field Education. So if you have not met with the placement assistant, you are not placed for the upcoming academic year. So keep that in mind. But also keep in mind that you want to make sure you check your Wayne State email. All correspondences from the Office of Field Education will come to your Wayne State email, and we do send emails usually maybe monthly once the term starts, that really just gets students started with socializing and entry into the acclimation process for field. One thing that I will highlight is that students must provide criminal background information. A lot of agencies do conduct background checks, so students must be maybe required to submit electronic fingerprints. Some agencies require students pay for these. The vast majority pay for any backgrounds for students. And many agencies that provide work with children and youth or adults, they do have some legal requirements. And a criminal record may prevent students from being accepted at some affiliated agencies. And because field placement is absolutely required, and if you are unable to establish an internship due to criminal record, we will need to look at some alternative scheduling for students. Another thing that I will note is that if you have a criminal record or if you have legal interactions while a current student, you are required to inform either the assistant dean for academic affairs or the director of field. And failure to inform either of these individuals of a background may result in termination from the program. One thing that we also tell students to do is to find out what are some potential things that they may encounter as they transition from student with our program to professional with the state. So we do encourage students that have any backgrounds to reach out to the Michigan Board of Social Work to make those inquiries about how licensure might be impacted due to any background. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the advanced year curriculum. So all of you have heard from our various speakers around our concentrations. So the field placement that you enter into is your MSW concentration year. It is concentration specific, meaning that if you're in a personal practice, you will be placed in an internship that deepens your understanding of settings where this practice can take place through whether it be clinical interactions, advanced case management, advanced medical case management, depending on your specialization. And if you're innovation and community policy and leadership, again, your field placement will be a setting where your exposure will allow you to deepen your understanding of settings where practices are related to urban social planning, community development, policy analysis, advocacy, or even program development and systems coordination or research. So students need to recognize that the field placement experience will align with those concentrations. Now, there are opportunities where students who are in a personal practice or ICPL may want exposure in other areas, and that may be possible, but your primary responsibilities must align with your concentration due to the concurrent nature of our program. And students most definitely want to review the field education manual, where you can look at learning objectives and skills and knowledge objectives for your curricular year, which is on our school website. Next slide. So two things I want to make sure that students are aware of, and these are provisions from that field manual that I just stated. The first is a statement of acknowledgement. These are provisions from our field education manual, and students sign these in IPT before they are placed. And students should know that they're still responsible to be knowledgeable of and adhere to all policies and procedures related to field, but these specific ones are essentially those that get students started with the placement process, understanding the time commitment commitment, understanding that they may be required to do some confirmation requirements, understanding that while we take geographic location into consideration, that students must be able to transport to and from field, things of that nature, and of course, reminder of professional interactions. The second document that students sign in our IPT system, go ahead and advance, Sarah, are our professional and technical standards. So the social work profession itself demands practitioners that have the MSW degree commit to professional responsibility and demonstrate appropriate interpersonal and ethical behavior. So the academic curriculum at Wayne State University reflects that. And one of the ways that we do this is not only by reminding students that their professional behavior must be in accordance with the National Association of Social Work Code of Ethics, but also professional and technical standards set by the school. So students review these in IPT as well before they meet with our office, and they also sign off on it. Reminder that failure to comply with these standards constitutes academic misbehavior under the university student code of conduct, and could result in a student's dismissal from their academic program. So the next slide, I want to just remind students of some of their registration requirements. I know Lawrence has already had all of you review this and you're all on point. But just a reminder that students are registering for 2 academic terms of field. This is Social Work 8998. You must register for a field in order to attend your internship. Students have an option to register for either 4 or 6 credit hours. Our traditional commitment is 225 clock hours per term, or 450 clock hours for the academic year. Students must meet that 225 clock hours in order to receive a grade at the end of each term. And that's if you're registered for the 4 credits. If you're registered for the 6 credits, that's 338 clock hours per term, or 678 clock hours for the academic year. Reminder that you remain at the same agency for the entire 2 terms. And part of that is the continuity of education, but also the continuity of care for your clients. Each time that you attend field, you're going deeper in your learning. So we would not want to disrupt that by having students make unnecessary transitions during the academic year. One of the things that we did this past year and will likely continue is a COVID reduction in hours, and that information will be sent to students prior to the start of term. But here I wanted to highlight what your commitment would be in terms of our standard program. Go ahead to the next slide. There are some requirements that students complete. These are assignments and evaluations that students, and if you've been in our BSW program, these look very familiar. They're the same. They are completed differently because of the curricular year. But these are mandatory assignments. Students have to have these on file with the office in order to receive a grade each term. These assignments have due dates, so students should be adhering to those due dates as well and plan accordingly. The first is a learning plan. Your learning plan is essentially your roadmap through field placement. It is an educational agreement between you and the agency. It essentially outlines what it is you will be learning, the tasks, duties, and responsibilities that you will perform that will be an example of how you've met competency over the academic year. It's a living, working document, so you will submit it at various times throughout the academic year, but it essentially is a guide for you to remind you of your objectives and goals in your task. Students complete 5 process recordings or praxis if you're an interpersonal practice student. The process recordings are completed if you're a macro student. The praxis are completed. So students, and we'll address the question there, but students will complete 5 of these each academic term. There is a time log that is also an IPT that students will complete, and that is expected to be completed weekly so that your field instructor, your liaison, and my office can track your hours as you move through the process. Midterm evaluations are completed by your field instructor on site, and these are completed at midpoint as essentially a check-in, and as at the end of each term, a FIASC or field instructor student competency is completed that will allow us to assign a grade. Next slide. So one of the things I want to remind students of is that we are still navigating a pandemic. So we at the school have been monitoring and carefully in assessing the impact of the COVID pandemic on our social work students. It's continuously changing from week to week, if not day to day. We are moving towards progress, so we're very hopeful for the fall. A reminder for students is that field has always been face-to-face. While some remote activities may be an option, it is at the discretion of the agency. So students are eligible to begin field in the fall. It has not been canceled. It's not been changed. However, the school has developed a detailed and very robust contingency plan that includes online learning modules to support and supplement student learning and field placement assignments if there are any disruptions caused by COVID. So if a student is exposed and in quarantine, or if students are prohibited by state or agency policy from returning on site to field. So our contingency plan requires that field instructors approve any agency-based remote activity or supplemental online learning modules. In order for any hours to count towards the term, students cannot just freely complete these. They must be in line with your goals and learning objectives with the agency. And you'll receive information about that again via email closer to term. Next slide. So just some reminders, each student should be placed, full and part-time students begin field placement in the first year unless you've had an attenuated plan of work. Each student will be assigned a field instructor, and this individual is an MSW at the agency. And this person will be your supervisor and meet with you weekly to review your tasks and assignments. Students will also be assigned a faculty field liaison. This is a representative from the school, staff, or faculty that support, mediate, and ultimately grade students in field. So just some the due dates for all of your assignments and the start of field will be posted on our website closer to the academic term, but it will also be in the home tab of IPT, and each student will receive, each class receives a Canvas site where you'll receive information as reminders, but ultimately all assignments are due in IPT. So the start of field is scheduled to begin as August 30th this year, unless your agency has identified a different date. So with that, be on the lookout for a start of term newsletter from our office that will outline a lot of your requirements for the term. Someone asked about the hours per term coinciding with the website. The hours per term listed on the slide are the requirements for the master's program. It is not what we did as a part of our COVID reduction. What you're seeing on the website is the COVID reduction for the 2020-2021 academic year, which will likely continue for the 2021-2022. What was in the slide are the requirements of your MSW program. And it's good for students to know that in the event anything regarding the COVID reduction changes. All righty, with that said, I am done. We've got a couple of other points of contact for us later today. So if you've got questions for Field Ed, write them down, jot them down. We will be in breakout sessions at Sarah Lawrence, 11:10? 11:10, and then we will be on with the academic advisors at 12:45. Yes. So if you have any questions about field, hop on at any point during those times, and we'll be happy to assist.
All right.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Dr. LaShore, for giving us that thorough review of the field, Office of Field Education, and what you offer. That was wonderful. We're going to go ahead and move forward now to the next part of our agenda. Our next topic is supporting your journey. And we have Ms. Patty Dixon, who is a university counselor and crisis response coordinator for counseling and psychological services on campus. And she'll be providing you with information about supporting your journey in the MSW program.
Hi.
Ms. Dixon, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Patty. I'm just going to share my PowerPoint. Maybe. We'll see how this goes.
Got it.
Can you see it? I'm never convinced you can actually see it. So hi, my name is Patty Dixon. I'm one of the counselors at CAPS, which is Counseling and Psychological Services. When you pay for your tuition, a portion of your tuition supports the counseling and psychological services. I'm actually an embedded counselor, so my offices are not in CAPS Maine, they're actually in the Office of Student Affairs in the College of Pharmacy. And I'm also partially assigned to the Frontline Strong Grant, which is a new initiative the university is taking to provide support services to police officers and firemen and first responders, which hopefully one of you will be one of my lucky interns and field placement students there. So we will see. So CAPS, like I said, is the Counseling and Psychological Services. And in order to succeed in college, it's exciting, but it's also stressful. So we're here to support you. Normally, we provide services in person, but because of the pandemic, everything we do right now is virtual. But we were fortunate to be able to make everything we do virtual. So you get a lived experience if you come to CAPS in terms of mental health support, even though it's all online. And people come to CAPS for a lot of different reasons. They come to CAPS because they're having academic performance problems, because they're struggling to manage this new life of college and home and work and school and studying. And right now, just the stress of everything that has happened for the last year has added to your ability to function when you're in school. We also help with motivation. It's not uncommon when people start into a program that they lose their motivation after they get in and all these demands. So we help with that. We can build your self-esteem, help you learn skills to cope with anxiety and depression and with test anxiety and panic attacks. We address relationship concerns and just adjustment to life in general and the changes that come with life. So we are a full service counseling center that's on campus. Even positive life changes come in to us to assist with you, so we can help you increase coping with your independence. And a big one that is a very common theme is people come in because they're struggling with their time management, or their relationships with their friends and family have changed because your focus now is on doing what you need to do to graduate, which is what we want you to do. We want you to graduate. Now, suddenly you might have multiple responsibilities and you might not be used to that. So we'll help with that. Academics is a stress. And if you have new relationships on top of it, your placement, your co-classmates, your professors, all those things add to your new life situation and can be stressful. So CAPS is here to help. Sometimes things trigger and cause you to have stress and cause you to reach out to come to CAPS. 1 in 4 students we've found has a diagnosable mental health illness, but not all of those 1 in 4 will reach out for help. So one of the reasons they invite me here to talk with all of you is so that you know CAPS is available to you and that you're able to come and be at CAPS and get the support that you need. Because of those 1 in 4 students, 40% don't actually come and seek help. And so we want to make it accessible for everyone. So that's one of the great things that happened out of the pandemic, is because now that we're virtual, everyone is able to access CAPS services very easily just through the computer. 80% of students feel overwhelmed by their responsibilities. So 80% of you that are on right now may already feel overwhelmed by just the challenges of being in orientation and learning everything today and keeping track of all of it. And of that 80%, 50% will become so anxious you might not be able to get done the things that you need to get done in the next week to be able to start school. So CAPS is here. And 10% of that 80% might actually have fleeting thoughts of suicide or even a plan to complete suicide. So no, you're well supported. There's lots of people available to you to help you. Mental health affects you in many different ways. As I said, 50% of people in education struggle with it. 1 in 7 students reports having a problem with reckless behavior, which can put you at higher risk. So all these things lead to the need to have a counseling center on campus that's accessible to students and there to support you. Research, we're a research university. Everything we do, we got to back it up with facts. And one of the things that's really prevalent that backs up that you need to have mental health services accessible for students is that 75% of mental health issues appear by the age of 24. Although we have non-traditional students where people are older than 24 when they come to campus, most people on a college campus are between the ages 17 and 24, and 75% of the issues develop during that age period. So it's just another reason why college counseling centers are so important. And we're fortunate at Wayne State to have CAPS, but to also have the College of Counseling that has a counseling center, and the psychology clinic that also offers services. So CAPS might be the entryway, but we link you to the place that's going to give you the best support for you. Prior to the pandemic, 91% of college campus counseling centers reported an increase in services. Since the pandemic, 100% of counseling services said we've had more requests for services because of the stressors that are coming. And I can tell you, since we started talking about the return to campus, our number of requests for services online has gone up, just as people anticipate they don't know what's going to happen from now to September, and they don't know what it's going to be like to be back in the classroom. Unknowns are a thing that escalate anxiety and stress, and so we want to be here to support you for that. At least 100,000 college students on any given day are seeking mental health services in some way or form. So it's important to know it's available to you, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything to come to CAPS. So the most common mental health concerns among students are depression, anxiety, suicide, eating disorders, and substance use problems. This is pretty common for anyone in that 18 to 24 age group, but it's also common for older people. The changes in life can lead to these kind of issues in mental health needs. And so we're here to provide specialized services that can help you with that. What do you think? 80% of college students feel overwhelmed by their responsibility. That's a lot of people who are struggling. And so we address that when we see everyone, we talk about that. And the leading cause of mental health issues for college students is just anxiety. And I say just anxiety. It's not just anxiety. Anxiety is a real thing, and it's debilitating. So the sooner you talk to someone and you seek out help, the more likely you are to develop the coping skills to make it and manage your anxiety. As I said earlier, depression is the number one, one of the number one causes, but it's also the number one cause that students drop out of school. So if you're having signs and symptoms of depression, reach out to us because we want you to succeed. We want you to graduate. And there are early identification things. Professors, other students, resident hall staff, your family, academic counselors, academic staff, but most importantly, you know yourself best. So if you see that you're having symptoms of a mental health issue, do reach out to us because you are the number one thing that can prevent the mental health issue from impacting your learning ability so that you don't finish school. Things that impact the change are physical responses, thoughts, feelings, behaviors. So things you want to look at in yourself is if your physical responses to things are changing, if you notice you're having unusual thoughts or you're having unusual feelings or your behaviors. Say, for example, if you were someone who was always on time for class and suddenly just getting out of bed and getting to class, even if it's just to your computer, is difficult, it's time to reach out and talk to somebody. The physical signs that can show that it's time for you to reach out is if you're irritable, you're sweaty, you got dizziness, and not just because of the heat that we're experiencing right now, but that you're having dizziness or sweating that you can't account for. If your heart's beating irregular, if you're waking up in the middle of the night and find your heart beating away, if you're having stomach or bowel problems, if you're just constantly fatigued and you can't give an explanation, if you're having trouble concentrating, that could be a reason. If you've had a change in your appetite or weight, and that can be a change that you're eating more than usual or a change that you're eating less. Or if just that your thinking is slowed, your ability to retrieve words is becoming difficult for you, that's a reason to reach out and ask for help from people. So the thoughts that are common are what we call imposter syndrome for people who come to grad school or to college in general. You get here and you're starting to go to school and you think, I don't belong here. I don't know why I ever thought I could do this. Or maybe you're just having, if I just wasn't here, everything would be better. I'm never going to complete all these assignments. So if you're hearing this circle of thoughts that's just telling you, you don't belong here, you're never going to do this, that's time to talk to somebody and time to reach out. The emotional signs are a little bit more obvious. Sometimes people will be more emotional. They'll switch from one emotion to the other without any reason, or maybe your emotional responses to things are a little bit more dramatic than you're used to. If you're uncomfortable with sitting with your emotions, it's time to speak with someone. And behavioral changes that you want to look for in yourself and other people is missing class. And it could be missing class because we're in this new virtual world, never turning your camera on. You're more involved in a class if you have your camera on. If someone's never turning their camera on, it might be a reason to reach out. If you notice you're suddenly not putting your camera on because you don't want people to see you, that could be a reason to reach out. If you're experiencing a change or a drop in your academic performance, or if you're not completing or turning in assignments, those are all signals that something isn't going well. Another big one that can be with your relationships at home, with your partner, or with your family, is if you suddenly start having relationship problems, or if you notice you're suddenly taking risk, or a change in your use of substances. Those are all signs that maybe you want to speak with someone. So what does a student look like with mental health concerns? Any of you on this Zoom call, just look around at each other. Any of you could be the person who needs to reach out. So be mindful of each other and hold each other accountable and ask each other, how are you doing? It's a really important question to ask. How are you doing? So how are you guys doing? Thumbs up, okay.
I'm good.
I'm a little stressed, but I'm good.
I'm good. Thank you.
All together now. We're all good? No thumbs down? Okay. So helpful tips, talk to each other. When, even though I myself have been in meetings and in classes where someone will ask a question and I'm like, I'll just be quiet. I'm not going to say anything. Especially when we're in these Zoom meetings, if somebody asks a question, answer. It engages you into the meeting, but it also lets the instructor know they're not alone, because a lot of times instructors can't see you. They're talking to their own PowerPoint. So participate, be a part of it. Let each other know. The more contact we have with each other, the more we're going to be involved and invested, and we're going to be able to tell when someone's struggling. Do join the organizations and clubs that are available. Social work has a number of student-led organizations that you can join that will help you be engaged with other students and help you in your classes. Yes, it takes a little bit more time, but in the long run, the network that you develop is going to help you. Take care of yourself, take time to rest, eat balanced meals, and exercise, and avoid abusing substances. So these last ones, take care of yourself, take time to rest, eat balanced meals, exercise, and avoid substance use. I call those the basic ones. Look at those things first. If you're not getting time to rest, if you're not getting at least 8 hours, you're probably under stress. If you're not eating balanced meals, it's like putting the wrong gasoline in your car. If you're putting regular gasoline rather than unleaded, your car's not going to run well. If you're putting jet fuel instead of the gasoline your car requires, it's not going to run well. So don't drink too many energy drinks, because that's jet fuel and it's going to just burn you out. Finally, counseling can help. Do not be afraid to reach out to us and ask for help. CAPS is here for you, and we want to help you, and we're going to be available to you whenever you need help. It's free. You can talk about anything, and it's available to all registered students and their partners. So let's say you're having relationship problems, you and your partner can request counseling together to resolve those issues. Most importantly, it's confidential. What you talk about at CAPS and things that you reveal to your counselor are not shared with anyone else. CAPS, although it's part of the university, we're separate, and whatever you talk about at CAPS does not go into your academic record unless you ask us to put it there. So you can come in and talk to us about how horrible you think they're treating you at social work, and we're not going to reveal that. Okay. So how do you access CAPS services? Well, this is a really complicated question right now, because like every other department on campus, we're in the midst of determining how we're going to return to campus. For now, CAPS is going to remain virtual because we haven't quite worked out how to keep our clients and our staff safe in small spaces, but we are available for initial consultations, and you can set up your initial consultation by going to the CAPS website, which I will walk you through. The CAPS website looks like this. So if you go on the CAPS website and you go to requesting services, you just click on this little link that's on there and it'll take you to fill out the forms and you schedule your own initial consultation. An initial consultation is an initial contact with a counselor just to find out what it is you're looking for and to make sure CAPS is the right place for you. Occasionally, we refer people to other places in the community because the things that they need are something more than CAPS can provide. But usually people who come to CAPS stay with CAPS. So you click on that link, you select an appointment time, make sure you download or upload Microsoft Teams because everything that CAPS does is on the Teams app, and we provide our individual, our group, our workshops all through Teams. And, you know, as you fill out the paperwork, you're going to let the CAPS counselor know in your own words what it is you're looking for so that when you do meet with the face-to-face appointment, they kind of have an idea of why you're coming in. So CAPS, where is it located for when we do go back to face-to-face? We have two locations. The first is in the Student Center building, which is in the center of campus, and we're on the 5th floor with housing. The second location is in the Eugene Applebaum building over behind Whole Foods in the Office of Student Affairs. At this point, though, both of these offices are closed, and I'm not sure when they'll reopen. That depends on our return to campus plan, which is still in the process of being developed. So with that said, the key to your success over the next few months is balance. And I cannot stress this enough. I myself am a graduate of Wayne State School of Social Work, so I do know how difficult it is to get through that program and how demanding it is. So one of the things that you want to make sure you do is develop some ways to keep balance over the next few months so that you are taking care of those key things that I talked about, getting enough rest, eating balanced food, and drinking enough water. So to do that, you might want to consider developing a daily mindfulness practice. That means just taking a few moments just to sit with yourself and be in the moment without judgment, just to determine what it is you need. And the first step to doing that is learning how to breathe. So one of the things I'm going to leave you with today is how to breathe. So everybody sit up straight in your spot, and you can close your eyes, keep your eyes open. We're going to do what's called the 5-5-5. And what I want you to do is take a deep breath in through your nose like you're smelling your favorite scent. And then I want you to savor it for a count of 5. And then you're going to blow it out like you're blowing out your candles on a cake that's on the other side of the room. So everybody ready? Thumbs up. We're all ready? All right, let's go. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now blow it out. Again, breathe in. Hold it. And blow it out. Now, that is a really easy little breathing exercise. What it does is it will combat anxiety before it gets a hold of you, because most times you develop the symptoms of anxiety because you don't have enough oxygen and your body's starting to shut down. So just by taking a minute to breathe in for a count of 5, savoring it for a count of 5, and then blowing it out for a count of 5, you're going to slow down the anxiety process. The slower you do the breathing exercise, the more effective the breathing exercise is. So keep that in mind. If you can count a really slow 5, you're going to get more air into your lungs and you're going to slow down the anxiety reaction even more. So that's the first step. Next, make sure you use your 5 senses. If you're trying to relax and develop mindfulness, we have 5 senses that can help slow down anxiety. Appreciate the sights and sounds that you hear. When you're outside in the backyard, count how many different types of birds you can hear. When you touch something, even if it's just your desktop, see if you can feel your desktop in the middle of your hand. And when you smell something, really smell it, even if it's not a good smell. And finally, take the time to have fun. Go for a walk, do some exercise. I recommend that all of you go to the dollar store and buy a large bottle of bubbles and carry it with you anywhere. And when you start to have anxiety, pull that bottle of bubbles out. And just like you were when you were 5, blow bubbles, because for some reason that helps with breathing in air, but it also slows you down a little bit as you look at the bubbles. Get a coloring book. Be sure to laugh. spend times with your pets. Your pets love you, especially during this time that you're in graduate school, and just listen to some music. So all these things will help you to go forward and will help you to be effective as a graduate school. And if you're struggling, CAPS is here to help. All you have to do is reach out to us to give us a call or to go on the website and sign up for initial consultation on your own. So welcome to Wayne State. I'm happy to be here with you. I'm excited for all of you to start. And like I said, hopefully I'm going to have at least 2 students, one at CAPS and one for the Frontline Strong Grant. So I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. Any questions?
All right.
Okay.
Opening the floor for any quick questions. We have about 7 minutes until our next session starts.
I have a question. So with CAPS, you said we can intern there, correct?
CAPS does accept interns. I think that the interns that are going to be at CAPS have already been selected. We take 4 every year.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, but talk with Takesha because she's the one who arranges that. If you're interested, let her know. She can reach out and see if we're taking another one at this point. But I know that there's lots of different options. There's also the Center for Latina Studies that's on campus if you're looking for something on campus. And then, like I said, the Frontline Strong Grant. So you have a couple different options across campus to do your placement.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Patty, is CAP still offering group sessions for students that might want to hop on? Could you talk about that?
CAPS is offering 2 types. We're offering workshops, which are open to everyone across the campus, and you don't have to be a client at CAPS to participate in those workshops. The workshops include things on anxiety, things on coping with the pandemic, grief, building your self-esteem. So there are a variety of topics, and anyone can sign up for a workshop. You just have to look for them on academia. We do offer counseling groups, also therapeutic groups. If you're interested in participating in a therapeutic group, you do need to go through an initial consultation and ask what groups are available, and then you'll get placed in a group.
Hi, yes. I was just curious, what are the qualifications of the counselors who work at CAPS?
The counselors that work at CAPS, there's a variety of counselors. We have PhD psychologists, and we have masters in counseling, we have social workers, and we have masters in counseling. So any of those disciplines can apply for a job when we have a job posted.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what we're going to do, thank you, Ms. Dixon, for sharing this information about CAPS in ways that students can find support in their journey. This is very helpful information. We are very appreciative that you've come and shared your time and the resources. So thank you again.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do now, we have a few minutes until we go into our resource fair. This is your opportunity to explore all the resources that we have to offer, whether it be financial aid, career services, libraries, the Social Work Student Alliance, Office of Field Education, Research Center, National Association of Social Workers, Child Welfare Certificates, temporary school social workers in schools, temporary certificate, the Joint Degree Program, and Disability Certificate, and most importantly, the writing support that we offer here at the School of Social Work. So you'll have 50 minutes from 11:10, and we'll come back to the main session at 12 noon. And the title of it is called From the Classroom to Your Career, the State of Social Work Practice. And our presenter is going to be Dwayne Brijak, who currently serves as the Director of Membership Services and Development for the Michigan chapter of the National Association of Social Workers. And He is a dynamic speaker and provides the best information. I'm very excited about what he's going to share with you all today, and we're glad to have him here with us today.
And welcome everyone. Welcome to your MSW program. It's a very exciting time. I remember my orientation. I went to U of M. I'm a macro licensed social worker now, but I remember the very first day of my orientation. Ours was long at U of M. I think it was 2 days. But I remember going into the room and being really excited. We're in a little bit different environment now where we're not in a room, but we're all in each other's room. So that's a different sort of thing. So one of the activities that I like to do now that we're in Zoom meetings, and I learned this from a different social worker. So we're kind of feel like we're in the Brady Bunch all the time, right? We're in these squares around each other. So this is also a good stretching exercise. I know some of you have your cameras off, which is okay too, but we're gonna just do a quick high five to our neighbors to the side and up and down if you wanna do that a couple of times with me. And so it's pretending like we're getting to know each other. Great, and that's good, some stretching. I know you've all been here for a couple of hours now, so you're probably feeling like you need to get up and move around. Feel free if you need to do that. I'm gonna turn on my screen real quick. All right. So like Lauren said, my name is Dwayne Brejak. I am the Director of Member Services and Development at NASW Michigan. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a few things today. We're going to talk about the real world. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of what social work is looking like in 2021. You all have been through a BSW program, and likely many of you is the last year, so you know some of the craziness that's been on in the social work field in the last year. But it's important for us to acknowledge where we're at, what you're stepping into in your MSW program, the really good opportunities that exist in our field right now, and how we need you all to get connected to one another and in the field within the next year. So I'm going to make this as interactive as I can. It's hard in Zoom. I normally like to have giveaways and prizes, and I'm going to do that in the best ways I can virtually. But first, I want to get to know you all a little bit. And if folks, if you're open to sharing, would people either open their line or into the chat box, type in the type of social work or the area of social work that you're interested in. And if you have a particular population that you're interested in working with, also putting that into the chat box, just so we can get to know each other a little bit. And while you're doing that, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My undergrad was not social work. I went into social, I was a psychology and music undergrad. I played trombone and sing. I was in the marching band at U of M for any of you marching band nerds that might be on here as well. Also a social work skill. So one of the things that I want you to be thinking about as you develop your next year and get ready to go into the field is there are so many things that you may be passionate about outside of like traditional social work that directly will relate to getting jobs you want. Whether you may be a parent, you may be in a faith community, you may be in marching band, you may be an artist, maybe a dancer, an athlete. All those things can also be tied into social work because our field covers everyone in every setting in everywhere in the United States. But I was really not sure what I wanted to do after I finished my undergrad. I really loved the clinical aspect of psychology, but I got really passionate about politics and community organizing work. This was in around the first Obama election. I hadn't been involved in politics before, but I loved that community engagement, that activism. And so I was trying to think about, is there a profession that combines the clinical side that I loved in my psychology degree with the organizing side that I loved in politics? And I did not know it was social work, but one of my friends, and some of you probably had people that pushed you here into this room today, say, hey, Dwayne, you need to get your MSW, that's you, ready, go. And I was like, social work? Like, don't they just like take kids away and like give out welfare, right? The traditional stereotypes about what people think social workers do. And she's like, no, that's not what social workers are. You need to go research an MSW program, go read through the code of ethics. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so I read through the code of ethics and I was like, oh, that sounds like my people. And I'm guessing some of you may be in that same boat as well. I was like, there is a field that really has this focus on advocacy work, even if you're really passionate about the clinical side of things. Like we have to be involved in legislative initiatives. We have to care about how to change systems. And especially today, there's a lot of changes happening within social work and conversations about how do we make our field more accessible? How do we make sure that the work we're doing is not oppressing communities further? And how do we take those big level, whether it's state or federal level policy, and making sure that they represent our communities? So I ended up going into my MSW program. My concentration was policy and evaluation and a minor in community organizing. And after, I was thinking I was going to be doing lobbying work after graduation, applied for some jobs in Washington, D.C. And at the same time, this position at NASW Michigan opened up. And again, one of my MSW cohorts members, she's like, Dwayne, you need to apply for this job. This is you. This is what you do. This is who you are. And I was like, I kind of want to get out of Michigan. I'm burnt out of this state. I'd like to move somewhere more exciting. But I looked at the job and I was like, well, that's me. So I guess I just need to apply for this. And I've been at NASW for 9 years now, which is crazy. It's your field time is going to fly by. I'm, I guess, a seasoned social worker now, which sounds weird to say. But social work, what I have learned at NASW is social work is so versatile and you can do anything. So we've got 100 of you on this call today. We've got folks who are interested in substance use, in school social work, in community organizing and political work. We've got folks who are working in SUD, in domestic violence shelters, who want to work with juvenile justice or the criminal justice system, in law or agencies, in corporate settings, in environmental justice. And your MSW program allows you to do that. And your degree allows you to do all of those things and things that you're probably not even thinking of. So as we think about kind of the future of social work, you are the future of social work. So when I say, like, take your passions into social work and your ideas into social work, I really mean it, because one of the fascinating things that I get to witness in my role in the association is we get to see a lot of the emerging areas of social work pop up. So especially in the last year, we've seen this growth of telehealth by necessity, right? Many social workers and in your BSW field placements, you probably saw your organizations adapt to having to have to use technology. But we're seeing things like avatar therapy become larger. And if you're not familiar with that, it's like you basically create an online or a video game character of yourself as the social worker, and you meet up with your clients in a virtual space with a character that they've created. That's super fun and super interesting, but not something that we've had to really grapple with in terms of ethics and legal issues in the last few years. We have social workers who use horses in their practice and do equine assisted social work. I say a thumbs up from Stacy. Yeah, we've got lots of folks who are interested in animal assisted social work. And you can do that in schools. You can do that in prisons. You can do that in private practice work. You can do that in nursing homes, right? So even regardless of kind of your setting, you can use some of these interesting modalities. If you're passionate about animals, you may be able to incorporate that into a whole host of things that you're working in. We've got social workers in the state Senate. We have social workers in the national Senate. Debbie Stabenow has her MSW from Michigan State, right? She's one of the few social workers at that level. Joe Biden's daughter is a social worker. So it's like we've got these social workers in a whole range of things. So for the next year, while you're in this MSW program, I really hope that you all will take the opportunity to explore social work. That's really probably the biggest advice I can give you for the next year is, yes, you want to kind of find what is your niche, what are you passionate about, but also don't be afraid to like look out and see, oh, I didn't even know I could do this thing. And part of that is expanding your social work network. So I say it is put the social in social work. My job at NASW is an extrovert job for things like this. I am not an extrovert. So I will have my alone time to recoup my energy later. I'm sure many of you know that feeling, you fellow introverts on this line, but you have to turn it on, right? We have to be able to connect. And in social work, half of our title is social. So we have to be connected, we have to be resourced, we have to know people. And as MSW students, the first people that you need to start to build your network in is within the field. Who do you know within social work? So that's going to be your cohorts. You already have a BSW cohort and faculty group that you probably know from wherever you did your BSW, but now you're in an MSW program. There's going to be some new players at your internship, in your cohort, in your classrooms, right? Start there, but then build out from that. So I want to do a couple of questions for you all to win prizes, and I put my email into the chat box. So I'm going to need you all to, let's see, what's the best way to do this? I'm going to have 3 questions, so there are 3 prizes, and I'm going to need folks to unmute their line if you want to answer this. So the first question, and this is to kind of test your knowledge about what does social work look like in Michigan. How many social workers do you think there are in Michigan? I'll need some brave volunteers to unmute themselves and give us a guess.
Say like 200.
Clarissa, 200 social workers in Michigan. Way low, but good guess. Thank you for trying. I appreciate your first bravery of today. All right, what other guesses might we have?
I'd say maybe like 1 million.
1 million? So that's closer on the national level. So we're specifically talking in Michigan. So nationally, there are about 750,000 social workers.
9,000.
9,000, Luba, good guess. Higher than that.
50,000.
50,000, Ashley, good guess. Lower than that.
20,000.
Oh, we're getting closer. Not 20, higher than 20.
30,000.
All right, Clarissa, I saw you come back with the 30,000. Sorry, your video's on, so if somebody else said it, I saw her mouth move at the same time. So Clarissa, you are correct. So send me an email in the chat box, or just send me an email, but my email's in the chat box with your t-shirt size and your address, and I'll get that to you sometime late this week. But yes, in Michigan, we have 30,000 social workers. So that is a lot of people. We are one of the largest states in terms of social workers. And what I mean by social workers is those are licensed individuals. So to be able to call yourself and work as a social worker in Michigan, you have to have a license. I know Anwar talked with you all a little bit earlier. I don't know how much you talked about licensure. I missed that part. But you have to have a license in order to call yourself a social worker in Michigan. So those are the folks that are registered through the state. And we continue to grow that number. Just a few years ago, it was around 25,000, and now we're up to 30,000 as of this year. So it continues to grow. And we've got social workers in every single county in Michigan. There's at least one licensed social worker in every county. Some of the small rural counties, especially in the northern part of the state, do just have one, but there are social workers all over the state of Michigan. And that's important for you all to know, because those are going to be your colleagues in a year from now. Those, I know now it seems kind of like an abstract number, but in a year, those are going to be people that you're working with, that are going to be your advocacy partners, that may be coalition builders, that you're going to be working on projects with, that you may be doing presentations with or for. And so starting to get to know some of those other people across the state is that's a really good thing to do now. So as it relates to social work students, our second question is, how many social work students are there in Michigan?
700.
700, higher than that, good guess.
1,200.
1,200, keep going. Tabitha, was that 1,000, higher than that?
5,000.
5,000, higher than that?
15,000.
Oh, 15,000, less than that?
7,000.
All right, I heard a 7,000.
I said 7,000 with somebody else.
Was that Jeannie?
Yes, that was me.
Jeannie. All right, who was the other one? Ashley?
Yeah.
All right, Ashley, Jeannie, both send me your address and t-shirt sizes. So Michigan, we have 6,500 social work students. So I'm just rounding because you were the closest ones I heard. 6,500 social work students. We have 4,000 BSW level students. So you all have a BSW. I know not all of you are from Michigan, but one of the things that I always tell BSW students before graduation, if I speak with them, is how many other BSW students do you know before you graduate that are outside of your school? And if the answer is 0, that's a little bit of a problem, because it means you've missed a giant network of people that are going through a very similar thing as you that can be your resource. Now, you all are now in your MSW program and have about 2,500 fellow MSW students across just the state of Michigan. Michigan has 11 MSW programs, and they range in size. Wayne's got a pretty large MSW cohort, but we've got big schools, small schools, public schools, private schools, faith-based schools. It's a pretty big range of who we have here in Michigan. But one of the things that you all need to start thinking about is, how are you connected to all of those other students outside of just Wayne State? So you may have your folks in your cohort. One of the easy and free ways that you can connect is I dropped in the chat a link to our Facebook page. So there's a Michigan Social Work student Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, please join that. That's a really good place to share resources, or if you've got an event coming up that you want people to know about, please share that there. Because you have a year to expand that bubble that you're in right now. So get to know some of those other MSW folks, and I'll talk a little bit about how some other ways you can do that. The other thing that you need to know about the Michigan social work population, and just about the social work population in general, is we are a little bit of an older profession. We get a lot of people, and I'm guessing some of you on this line may be non-traditional students coming back for a second or third career. That's not always the case in master's level program. And so our field tends to skew a little bit on the older side as it compares to the general population. And so what we know that means, and what that's going to mean over the next 5 to 10 years, is there's going to be more management level social work positions open than normal. And we also have seen that as a result of COVID, is that people are retiring at a little bit faster pace than maybe they had anticipated. In social work, we're seeing one of two things. We're either seeing retired people come back to help out, at least at the beginning of the pandemic, that was one of the things we saw, or we're seeing people leave to retire early, which means that we're seeing these management level positions open up. And so you all who are coming into the field now, we want to make sure that you are positioned as best as possible in the next couple of years to move up the ladder within organizations. And some of you may already have the skills to be in those positions, especially if the MSW may be something that you need the degree to get the license to be in a job that you may already be in working in an organization for. Now, some of you, like me, this may be the first experience to social work in a big way, and it may be your first big job in social work after you finish your MSW program. But what other skill sets you have or other work that you've been doing on top of your undergrad and graduate degree will also play into what sort of positions you might be wanting to apply for after graduation. But like I said, we got tons of social workers, 30,000 licensed folks, 6,500 students. So starting to build out your network as best as possible. And NASW is the largest organization for social workers in the world. So we exist to partially to do that. All right, last question. What percentage is the social work profession expected to grow between 2019 and 2029?
15.
15, who is that?
Monet.
All right, Monet, I'm going to give it to you. So send me your t-shirt size and your address. Monet was pretty close. We're 13% is our expected growth rate. We are one of the fastest growing professions in the whole United States. So that means that you all who are now in an MSW program, you are coming into social work at a good time because there are jobs. And we want to make sure that those are good jobs and well-paid jobs and well-resourced jobs. But that is also something that we need to continue to work on in our field. One of the things that I hate to hear in social work, and I can't see everyone's hands, but give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you went into social work for the money. If you went into social work for the money, thumbs up. If you went into social work for the money, didn't, thumb down. I'm seeing some thumbs down, some thumbs down. You're all liars. You are all liars. You are getting a master's degree to have a professional career that hopefully allows you to be financially stable and move up the economic ladder. Yes, we're in it to help people, but do not sell yourself short, because we do that a lot in social work. And we have to really take the reins about being more advocacy oriented in terms of our own field, because we have to fight back on bad wage issues. We have to push back on workforce issues that are in the field. And you are now in your MSW program, so you are part of that advocacy circle now. So if you see issues with pay issues in our field, we want to hear about it at NASW. We want you to work on it in your field. You all are going to be social work managers in a couple of years. So we want to make sure that you know how to advocate within your organizations, whether that's budgetarily, if we're trying to get grant money, to reallocate resources so the social workers are supported. Because I know when we were in our breakout groups earlier, one of the things we were talking about there was burnout, right? And part
Yes.
of burnout sometimes is tied to money, right? And can you take the time off? Do you have enough resources to do whatever you need as a human being? Does your employer cover your licensure costs or provide supervision? Do you have to get additional trainings, or do you have to pay for your own continuing education? You know, your social work education does not stop in a year from now when your MSW degree is done, unfortunately. Your license is tied to continuing education. So for your whole professional career, you're going to have to continue to expand your skill set and make sure that you're up to date with what's going on in the field. But money is an important part of that factor. And I think one of the things that I want to make sure you take out of your vocabulary for the rest of your social work life is you did not go into it for the money. Because that may not be like the ultimate goal, right? We are a helping profession, but we don't want to sell ourselves short by saying we don't care about money and we don't need to know about money, because we do. And we live in a capitalist world where unfortunately we have to deal with money. And so some of the stuff that we're going to provide, and hopefully Wayne will provide you over the next year, is tools to how to advocate for yourself when you get ready to apply for the job market. And even as a student, there's a lot of conversations nationally around unpaid internships, around student loan debt. You know, there are big things that impact you right now as a student in this space, and who can be in the field, who can afford to be in social work in an unpaid internship with student loan debt, right? Does that carve out who is represented at the end of the day and who can provide services for us? But we are a hugely growing profession. You'll see on this slide, NASW has 2 students on our board of directors. We have a BSW representative and an MSW representative that are voted on by our members. So one of the things that a year from now, that hopefully all of you will join NASW by that time, but we also invite you to vote in our elections. And so making sure that the people that are on our board are reflective of who our members want. Our BSW student upcoming, she starts July 1st, is Adalia Ali Khan. She is from Oakland University. And our MSW student, Kara Rossi, is from Michigan State. But Kara, as a fellow MSW student, is your voice to our association for the next year. I was excited to see on today's call, in your MSW cohort, you have our outgoing BSW representative, Jennifer LaFon. She was a student from the University of Detroit Mercy, but she's now at the Wayne State MSW cohort. So we've loved Jennifer. We're sad to see you go. But know that you've got a really good cohort of people there at Wayne that are there to support you as well. Any questions kind of about the numbers of social workers or any of that stuff before I kind of move on? All right, feel free if you have questions on your line. All right, so this slide is a lot. It's just graphically a lot, but this is what you're stepping into in social work in 2021, right? There are 4 large competing things, at least 4. There's COVID. It's not done yet, as much as we all wish it was done with. We're still dealing with a health pandemic and a mental health pandemic that's tied to that. One of, I think, good things that have come out of COVID is that people are much more open about mental health issues in the last year, because we are all dealing with mental health issues over the last year, being stuck at home. Maybe we're stuck with people that we don't want to be stuck with. We're in different working environments. If you're extroverts, I'm sure you all have been extra hurt not having your social circles around. But we're all dealing with this global pandemic that is impacting how we work, how we interact, how we can provide services. And so as social work, we're not immune from that. Our practice has completely shifted over the last year. And that, if you're a macro person, how have communities organized around this? There have been lots of communities doing lots of really great stuff in the last year, developing food pantries, doing vaccination work, doing educational programming. And then on the clinical side, we've had to shift our practice to almost completely telehealth. So how do we do that? How do we do that ethically? Who does that work with and who does that not work with? You know, we can't go back from telehealth at this point, as much as some of the insurances are really trying to push us to not allow continued telehealth. And that's where NASW steps in and does advocacy work. But we know that some of our clients thrive in telehealth. If you're in a rural area that maybe you didn't have an expert near you, you can now see somebody. Or if you don't have transportation, or maybe you are limited in terms of your mobility, Or maybe there's not somebody who looks like you or is from your background that you could have seen as a therapist or as a service provider before. This has been really good. So we have to figure out, how do we continue to shift the profession forward? And you all as incoming students, most of you are pretty young, and I'm just going to make that assumption that many of you, just because of the generation you grew up in, have pretty good technology experience. You know how to go through most websites. Many of you have good social media skills. And as you go into your internships or throughout your program, how can you enhance some of the work that your organizations are doing with the skill sets you are just innately bringing in? Facebook is a resume skill. Twitter is a resume skill. TikTok is a resume skill if you build it as such, even as social workers. You know, I run the NASW media social media platforms as one of my hats that I wear. You know, social workers, we do 1,000 things at any given time within our organization. So there are lots of things that you can bring in, and especially as technology is really enhancing in many of our workplaces, you may be able to come in even as an intern and say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you tried to do a Facebook campaign to get the information out? Or how are you all marketing your services to our community, right? Those are things that you may think about bringing in that you may not have already. The last year, we've had a really racial justice climate pop up. We are figuring out within the field as well, how has social work played a role in oppressive systems and continues to play a role in oppressive systems, right? Social work has not been devoid of marginalizing communities and people. And so what are we doing as a field to make sure that we're not oppressing communities and our clients more? There's lots of work around anti-racist practice going on in the field, but we know that there's a lot of work still to do. And so I'm going to give you all some resources around that in a bit as well. But if you are interested in inclusion work, if you're interested in training work, if you are interested in community organizing work, there are lots of spaces right now that are calling for social workers to step forward in that space. As well as on the policy level, there's a lot of criminal justice work that's being talked about. What should the social workers' role in community safety be? Should social workers be in police departments? Should social workers not be in police departments? There's a lot of debate in the field around some of these really critical issues. And what do we dream of our field looking like in 5 to 10 years from now? You all are in that pinnacle moment where there's huge transformation going on in social work, and we need you to be participatory and present for that, because you all are living this. We value your positions as social work students, and we want you to contribute to all of these efforts that are going on. The other thing that happened last year, we can't forget, as much as I'd like to forget sometimes, is we had a crazy ass election, excuse my language. It is exhausting. That also is dealing with everyone's mental health. And we're in a place where we're really divided as a country, right? Even if we think about the pandemic, people are really politically divided about a lot of things that really shouldn't be political, but we are. We're in that space. It's the reality we all live in. And as social work students who are going into many settings across the state with lots of different people, you have to be aware of those positions, those situations that you may be stepping into in your communities or with your clients, and how do you navigate that political boundary? One of the things that makes social work a different sort of profession than counseling or psychology is we are a political profession. All of Section 6 of our Code of Ethics is about political engagement. So if you don't think politics is or legislative engagement is your jam, social work may not be your jam at the end of the day, because part of what our job is to be an advocate at the end of the day. We need to not just help people individually, but change the systems that got people into whatever they're dealing with, right? We want to deal with mental health on a large scale level. We want to deal with criminal justice reform. We want to deal with voting rights. We want to deal with LGBT issues, on Indigenous rights, on women's issues, on veterans issues. There's so many things that we all care about. And as you go through your social work program, talk to each other. Because I think the biggest benefit of a social worker, and one of the biggest strengths that we bring, are our stories and the ability to empower our clients to tell their stories. And one of the things we don't often do enough or do well enough is empower our clients to talk to their legislators about their stories, to change things that really, they could at the legislative level. And so you're going to start to see, I think I saw actually today on Facebook, Wayne's got a voting rights event coming up with their social work association. That's wonderful. Like, as many of those sort of things that you can go to, the better. And if politics isn't your jam, that's okay. Like, it's a tough world, but there probably are some ways that you can advocate that are going to be your jam. Maybe it's you tweet, or you Facebook, or you write a letter, or you're writing a letter to the editor, or if you're one of those people that want to meet somebody in person, you can go to a coffee hour or testify. And NASW as an organization, we exist to be the social workers for social workers. So my job as the director of membership is to know as many of you as possible and what you're passionate about and what you care about. And so if a legislative concern comes up that say, hey, there's this foster care bill that we want somebody to testify, I can say, hey, look, there's Jessica. I know she cares about foster care. I'm going to call her and see if she'd be willing to testify about her experiences in that area of the field. Or there's Ebony. She's passionate about whatever, right? We can go through this whole list, and I just made up those for you folks, but whatever your really passionate areas, we need to figure out how can we change the system and be connected as a social work field to really make it the biggest impact. And then the last piece that I have on here is we're an aging population. This isn't just 2021, but one of the things that as social workers is we're going to have to, and as a society, develop and create more resources to assist the older population. As boomers get ready to need more services, where does social work fall into that? And so gerontology is a huge and growing area of social work. But regardless of your specific area of social work, you're going to need to know how to deal with older folks, right? You could be saying you're interested in child welfare, but many children have grandparents who are their caregivers. And how do you deal with that? Or whatever your particular target area is, we're going to need to know about the geriatric population. And when you think about money, going back to that conversation, where is there going to be money? We know that gerontology, there's going to be money. Right now, there is tons of COVID money that's floating or out and about. A lot of it's being focused on SUD work, which is wonderful. We've got a training series around that going on right now. But if your organization, once you start your internships, you may be finding that they're also working potentially with money that's available right now and capitalizing on that. So those are kind of the four things that as MSW students, I see as the big things that you're stepping into. And I'm sure none of those are really a surprise to any of you, but I think it's important for us to continue to acknowledge that that's our environment. Are there any things that you all are really either excited about or kind of worried about as you enter the field that you've been thinking about as you start your MSW program?
I would say for me, because my last year of my undergrad was all online, so that like switch back to in person probably is something.
Yeah, that's a really good one. How do we manage this hybrid world we're going to be living in for the next at least half a year, where some stuff is probably going to remain virtual, but a lot of it's going to start to slowly teeter back into the in-person things. And what I think you're seeing probably at your internships is conversations about remote versus in-person work. I'm guessing some of you probably will still do remote work. And how do you build relationships and maintain relationships in a virtual setting? I'm guessing while you all were going through your internships, many of you went virtual. And I know as a field site, it was really tricky. I'd never had a virtual intern before, and building rapport with somebody that you see, an hour or two over Zoom every week is hard to do. And so having those really intentional conversations as you start your MSW program with your field sites about what is this realistically going to look like, and how can we build those relationships as strong as possible? Because for you all, you have 1 year in this placement, right? And it's going to be hopefully somewhere you want to work. But if not, you at least want to make good enough connections that hopefully you'll get a reference out of it and some skill sets that will transition into your job after your MSW program. So if it is virtual, how do you build in that time where you get to know each other? And I get it, supervisors are busy and stressed out too, but if they don't have time to do that, then maybe that's not the right site for you, right? If they don't have the time to actually mentor you, that's partially what your MSW internship is for, right? Is you're building those skills and relationships. And it's not just for you to do busy work, it's for you to develop skills and relationships to be able to thrive in the field post-graduation. So I highly recommend just being honest with your field sites. You know, you all are getting out of I mean, we're still in COVID, right? It's not over. Many of you are transitioning immediately from a BSW into an MSW program without really any gap time. I'm sure you're tired. I'm sure you're exhausted mentally, physically, all of the above, right? Emotionally. And that's okay to acknowledge in social work. And I hope that you do. And I hope that your supervisors are willing to hear that, because they're probably drained too. I think we're all a little bit drained after the last year. But what does self-care look like at this organization? If I need to take a mental health day, is that allowed? And what's the process? Do I just send you a text, right? Because as students, you're dealing with a lot on your plate as well. And so just going into the field, knowing that ask questions, be honest as much as possible. And if you're finding barriers, talk to your agency first. But if they're the barrier, talk to your field folks at Wayne State. And if they need additional support, call us at NASW. We do ethics guidance, we do practice guidance, we do career guidance. You know, we exist to be your social worker. So whatever barrier you're coming up with, it may be a liability issue. We want to make sure that we are there to support you. Are there other things people are thinking about as we get rolling into this year?
I just wanted to say that at this time, I don't have my field placement right now, but I had registered for all my classes, and I thought I heard something about if you don't hurry up and get your field placement, I won't be able to take my classes, or did I misunderstand that?
That'll probably be a question for a Wayne State person, but I would guess that they'll get you something before. I can't imagine that you wouldn't get a placement.
Okay, well, I just
popped on.
Pardon me?
I saw Lawrence popped on, so he may have an answer.
Oh, okay. Well, I know I have to submit my documentation, and I just was waiting for an email, but I was just curious to know, because it seems as if everyone has their field placement, and I just wanted to make sure that just because I haven't received it right away, that I was still able to do my class time.
Carol, I'll quickly just refer you to check in with Jeffrey, and he'll be able to help you out, answer all your questions.
Okay, thank you.
And Jeffrey has a nice library behind him. Appreciate that, Jeffrey. But yeah, field is a really critical piece of your next year. And my advice on field is, if you find that it is really not a place for you, and you know that fairly early on, talk to your Wayne State field people, because you can switch sites. It's not ideal, right? But like, it happens. The fit sometimes doesn't work, and that's your one MSW placement. So you want to get out of it the most that you can. You know, we've had interns that it just doesn't work for one reason or another, and sometimes it's best we can find you an organization that's going to fit for that next year. And part of your internship is to learn, I really like this work, or nope, don't want to do this again after I graduate. And that's okay if that's the learning experience, because you also learn that as well. Or maybe if I'm in this sort of work, I need to be in a different sort of a setting, right? That's part of your internship guidance throughout the field. Other thoughts anybody's having?
Yeah, just to pick up on that, like when you're interviewing for your internship, interview them as well, because I learned that after this pandemic, I obviously I wasn't able to do exactly what I wanted. So when I was interviewing, I was like, well, if we break out again, you know, hopefully not. I was like, will I be able to come in? Like, what will happen then? And like, they literally said like, no, during the pandemic, like the students were still able to come in. So I was like, all right. I was like, this is all I care about at this point, that I just want to like secure my spot, that I don't lose that hands-on experience again. So like, make sure, I literally came with a list. I was like, this is what I want to know. And I had like all my questions like written down. And like, actually, she was very like surprised and shocked about it. But for me, I've learned so much that I was like, this is a norm for me. Now I'm literally going to come with the questions, and like, you should be able to answer them, you know, if you know what you're doing, especially if you're taking a master student.
Yeah, Dominica, that's really good advice. I mean, really any interview, you should be interviewing the employer because it's all about fit, right? Are you going to fit? Are they going to fit what you need? Vice versa. So bringing in that list of questions, you should always make sure you follow up with your folks, whether or not you want to end up being there too. Send them an email. Thank you for the interview, the time, right? Those little things can set you apart, especially if an agency is looking at a lot of different people. That follow-up can be the thing that really puts you over the edge versus somebody else. But yeah, you want to make sure that the climate is right. You know, if an organization has issues, you may be able to find that on like reviews online, or if you know somebody who works there, always try to get the insider scoop. Like, what is it really going to be like there? And know your own styles of learning, right? If you need lots of individual supervision, or if that's how you thrive, you may not, a lot of social work agencies are going to have a difficult time providing that, but you want to make sure you ask that so you don't start and realize that that's going to be a problem. Or if you really work good independently and have some fantastic ideas about where you want to run, some agencies are going to love that. And some agencies are really going to want you to focus on something that they really want to work on right now. And so having those open conversations early is really critical in that. But really, really good thoughts on that. Let me just talk a little bit about NASW, and then we can just go back and hear a little bit more about your kind of concerns and questions. So NASW, we're the largest organization for social workers in the world. You do have to join if you want to become a member at socialworkers.org. And I highly recommend that as many folks as possible join, because we are the voice of social work. And when we go to testify, whether that's at the state level or the federal level, a lot of times senators or folks ask us, how many people are you representing, right? And the more social workers that we have, the larger our voice and our collective power is. And when you think about building that social work network, this is a really good way to do it. We have about 115,000 members across the country. About 15,000 of them are student members, 15 to 20,000. And one of the things that's going to be really beneficial is you have a dual membership into the national chapter and into the state chapter. So I know that some of you are from different states. Maybe even some of you are from different countries. When you move, or if you move after you graduate, your state chapter will follow you kind of wherever you go. And that's important because licensure rules are different all over the country. Jobs look very different across the country. The letters that are after your name are going to look different all across the country. And so you want to be connected to people wherever you end up. And even if you end up in kind of a global space, there are social workers everywhere. We have chapters in Guam, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and an international chapter. So if you're thinking of global social work, which is kind of it's kind of emerging, but it's becoming more and more now that telehealth is like a real thing and like a national conversation and an international conversation. But that's a really good benefit of joining now as a student, is you're going to have that guidance right after you graduate. Some of the other things that as a student that's going to be really important that you get connected to is news and information about social work. Wayne State's going to provide a ton of that for you, right? You're going to get, you probably already started to get lots of emails from them around lots of things going on. But you want to make sure that you are hearing about what's going on in social work. Are our rules changing? Did continuing education requirements change? What opportunities do you have to get involved with various initiatives or advocacy work? And as you heard a little bit, there are tons of things going on advocacy-wise that social workers care about that we need to be working on collectively. I'll show you a slide in a little bit about some of our priorities as a chapter, but it ranges from anything from criminal justice reform to foster care work, to immigration, to LGBTQ issues, to racial justice work, to voting rights, right? All of these things that if we went through all the folks that are on this call today and I asked you each to say, what is the one thing that you care about most? We'd probably get 60, 70, 100 different answers, right? We as the organization have to deal with those 100 different answers and figure out, okay, what's the priority? What does our current legislature look like? What can we work on that we think is going to be successful? And what do we need to continue as a long-term strategy that can help the most clients or our field? Career resources, so that's stuff around, we have the largest job database in the state. You may want to have your resume reviewed. Use Wayne State to your full advantage. You're paying for that right now. Use their career center. Use as many resources that you have while you're on campus there. But we also exist to give professional review of stuff as well. Lots of training. I was telling folks in our breakout group, you know, as students, often when I was in my MSW program, you don't feel like a social worker yet. You're like, I'm just kind of in training. I have like the training wheels on, but I'm not like a professional. Well, let me tell you, in like a minute from now, you're going to be a professional. I mean, it's a year, but let me tell you, that's going to fly by. And you're going to be seeing clients. You're going to be doing community work in the next year. You are a social worker in practice. You know, you are in that right now. So if you see trainings or conferences that seem really appealing to you, please attend them. You may not need the continuing education that's a lot of times associated with them, but many times there is a free or reduced student price to attend, not just NASW stuff, but lots of the conferences that are out there. I was talking to, I think it was Scott earlier in the breakout groups, he's interested in school social work. The School Social Work Association in Michigan, they're a separate association from NASW. They have their conference in November. It's a 3-day conference in Traverse City this year. It's in person, but that's the premier event for school social work in Michigan. So knowing what your avenue is and what sort of events are best to get connected to so you can expand your network within that area is great to do over the next year as a student. And hopefully your field placements will also give you some flexibility if you want to attend events like that. I know our interns go to things all the time that may be not hosted by us, but they think it's going to supplement what they're getting in their MSW program. That's great. We want to see you do that as students. If you have ethics or legal questions throughout your MSW program, contact us. We have a state call number and a national call number. Practice resources, lots of stuff around licensing. Wayne's got a good faculty group that knows all about the licensing process there, but you're going to get to know a lot more about that closer to graduation. But know that we also are a really good resource for licensure. We'll do webinars, we have prep courses, all of that once you get a little bit closer to that graduation time. Additionally, things like malpractice insurance, Wayne has you covered while you're in your placement. So if something happens, a client slips and falls when they're with you, you don't get sued, or you've got some coverage if something like that happens. But once you get into the field, that may be something that you have to get on your own. So those are just a couple of things that as a member you may want to access. Career stuff is often big for students. We have the largest job database for Michigan social work positions. You can reach out to us for cover letter or resume review. And I would highly recommend, as you apply for things, even if your internship's requiring that you submit a resume, have a couple of people look it over before you send it in, because you want to just have it be as good as possible. And I'll tell you, I've seen some really terrible resumes come through, but they sent them to me for review, so I'm glad they came through. But you want to make sure you get some sets of eyes on that. We also have a professional development booklet. It's about 60 pages. It's a guide about how do you do an interview, what are Skype interviews like, what are some words you may want to think about using, whether you're a clinical or a macro-focused person, some good resources there. Another resource that you all are starting a program now, but our scholarship deadline is a little bit different than many. Ours is still open until August 1st. So especially if you're a student that is focusing on anything diversity related, we have $500 BSW and MSW scholarships available until August 1st. So please apply. It's a super easy application process. I think you just have to have 2 letters of reference, and then you write a 1 or 2 page letter about what kind of you're working on or have been working on or will be working on in your internships. So that application is open until August 1st, and then we will award that in the early fall. So I just wanted to promote that option. And we talked a little bit about racial justice work. There are 2 things that are happening regularly that we want to make sure that you all as students know about and can participate in. In Michigan, we have a social justice and anti-racism committee that meets monthly on the 2nd Tuesday of every month from 5:30 to 7. That group focuses on anything from educational programming to policy issues to practice issues within the field. And it's a collective of social workers from all over the state. They're free to attend. They're all, as of right now, Zoom. So you can find more information on our website about those if that may be interested, if anybody is interested in doing that, or if you're a part of a student group or an organization that is doing any anti-racism work and you need a partner, please reach out to us and we can share that with the larger social work network. And then lastly, right now, one of the things that we are doing as an association is asking for feedback from social workers about what you think needs to happen around anti-racist practice and what are some of the issues that some of you may have or may not have faced within the field around racism or oppression. And so there is a little survey. I'll make sure that all these links get posted into the chat as well. But that survey is open now, as well as we have a whole, it's about a 60-page document that's an action plan about what we are as an association working on as it relates to anti-racism in social work. CSWE, who accredits your program, is also looking to incorporate more implicit bias and anti-racism into social work curriculum. Many of the social work organizations are doing work on this right now as a continued action plan, which is great, but we want to make sure that as many social workers are involved in that process as possible. So those are two things as it relates to kind of anti-racist practice. A couple of upcoming events that I want to make sure you all have on your calendar. These two are unfortunately both at the same day at the same time, so you may have to choose one if either one interests you. But we have our first ever White House briefing about what the social work profession's goal and political strategy is with the White House. We will have representatives between the Biden administration and NASW there to talk about policy priorities. It should be a really fascinating event. July 7th at 6 o'clock. That also at July 7th at 6 o'clock, the New York State chapter of NASW is hosting an event on specifically for social work students on what do you need to know day one of social work job hunting. So that's going to be some good tips about you're a little bit out. I mean, you're a year away, but it's not too early to start thinking about what sort of things you need to be thinking about on the interview process, supervision, termination, all that good sort of stuff. So details about those can also be found on the NASW Michigan website. And most of these are also open to non-members, so you don't have to join, but obviously our work can be much more effective with more members. And then for students, we also have what's called the My NASW Student Community. It's an online, it works kind of like LinkedIn meets Facebook, where thousands of social workers across the country can post questions, share resources, upload documents, and ask questions to their colleagues all across the United States. It's a fantastic resource. If you are a student member, you're already tied into this. You do have to be a member to have access to this, but it's a really good way to network with people. Or if you are looking for a resource that maybe isn't just Michigan specific, this is a really good community to connect with. In terms of policy stuff, and I know this is a lot of information I'm throwing at you. As you can see, social work is a lot. We got a lot going on all the time. There's a lot of resources that are being developed and created. But some of the things that we're working on as it ties into the state budget: criminal justice, health equity, environmental justice, economic security, children, youth, and families, social work practice, and political engagement. Those are kind of our key breakdowns of where we take as an association our policy work. And then there's a lot of things that come up throughout the year that may tie into these sort of things. But know that if one of those things kind of rang a little bell in your brain is, oh, I'm passionate about that, know that we are interested and we're working on that. And if you're working somewhere, or if you are really passionate about something, or you see a bill come up and you're like, is NASW working on that? Please feel free to reach out to us if you don't see something from us, because it may be something that we're working behind the scenes on. Like right now, the student loan advocacy bill that we're working on is kind of a behind the scenes process. It's something that has to get reintroduced every year until it's passed. So if like the person, one of our sponsors last year was turned out. So we have to find a new sponsor to get that legislation reintroduced. So there's a lot of times behind the scenes work that is being done on things that you all care about. And if it's not, we want to make sure that we're working on things that are relevant to what you care about. And then lastly, I just wanted to leave a couple of ideas of ways to get involved while you're a student. You've already heard from your faculty, there are lots of things on campus to get involved with: student clubs, social work specific student groups, but then there are probably lots of other things at Wayne that may be affinity groups, or something that may be a special practice area, or maybe it's a sports group or an arts group that sounds interesting. So start on campus, then expand out to social media. There are NASW regional pages for every part of the state. If you're in Wayne County, NASW, that's Region 11. So if you just go on Facebook and put in NASW Michigan Region 11, you'll find that group there. We have our student Facebook page, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, lots of good resources there. But also be connected to organizations that you may want to get a job from after graduation. So follow those dream places. Maybe you want to work for the ACLU, or you're really passionate about working somewhere at the state. getting connected to those resources now, especially if they're free. I mentioned conferences and training. MPACE, that's our political action committee. So we endorse candidates. We're a bipartisan organization, but we want to make sure any candidates that we look at support the social work field. Does anybody know the two ladies on the right of this slide? Hopefully.
Senator Chang and Debbie Stabenow.
Yes, great. Thank you, Jennifer. Yes. Representative Stephanie Chang, if you're in Wayne County, you hopefully know her. She is an MSW. She did her MSW at the same time she was running for the state house. She was a student candidate and beat out 9 people in her primary as a student, an MSW student, to win her primary in Detroit. She's now a state senator. She's the first ever Asian American woman elected to the Michigan House of Representatives when she won. She, I believe, is one of, if not the first women to have a baby and bring her baby into the legislative chamber. She is awesome, and she represents the 8th District of Detroit. And then Debbie Stabenow, she is our national senator. She has her MSW from MSU, and she's a really good partner on a lot of things that we care about, especially if they're mental health related there. So there are really some cool social workers doing some things that you may not even think about as a social work career. But MPACE, that's our committee that looks at that. Here in Michigan, we have private practice groups. We have a human animal bond group. We have an aging and gerontology group. We have a children, youth, and family group. We have an LGBT group. We've got all these other groups that if you think that you are wanting to get connected to social workers in particular areas of social work, we can help you do that. When you join, you'll get a survey and it'll list them all and it'll tell you if you want to get on these listservs and find out when your meetings are, just check those and we can get you connected. And then there are lots of volunteer and leadership committee. I mentioned our board of directors. We have that at both the state and the national level. So at some point you may want to take a larger position in the association world or run for a delegate. Those are the people that vote on changes to the code of ethics or our policy positions as a larger association. So there are a lot, this is a prime time to be a social worker and a social work student. Know that we are here and I'm here to support you in whatever way that you need. Sometimes people hear national and I think we're this like giant conglomerate of an organization. There's 6 staff here in Michigan for the 30,000 social workers and the 6,500 students. So know that you know one of the 6. Here's Dwayne. So whatever you need, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. Here's my contact information. I also have our Director of Public Policies information here, Algeria Wilson. So if you have a particular policy need, she's a really great resource for that. But I know that's pretty much at the end of our time here today. Are there questions anybody has about NASW or about the social work field that I can answer in our few minutes left? And I know I checked out a lot of information. So for the folks who won the t-shirts, please email me your shirt size and your address. One of the things that I will do as well is we will be giving away a $50 gift card to any Wayne State. We'll be doing a drawing for any Wayne State student that joins between now and July 1. So I'll give you a few days if you can't join right this minute. We usually do some sort of giveaway every month, but if you want to join right now, this is a really good time to do it. The summer is a little bit of a slower time in social work field, so this is a good time to kind of get acclimated to what's going on. I know you're starting in your MSW program. And then if you have further questions, shoot me an email, give me a call, join us on social media, and I'd love to hear from anybody. And again, I just want to welcome you to your MSW program. We are so excited to have you in social work. Know that if you have any struggles over the next year, that you've got a whole team, an army of social workers behind you, ready to support you in whatever you need. And if you find something problematic about something you're dealing with in the field, we've got people that will help solve that. I mean, social workers are great problem solvers, and we want to make sure that you as students feel equally supported. So I just want to, again, thank you for letting me be here as part of your orientation, and good luck this year.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dwayne, for providing this great information. Thank you for just also your time. You go above and beyond every time, and we really appreciate that. And for students on the call, just remember to follow up on any of the resources Dwayne has provided. Dwayne, you'll make the slides available to us.
Sure.
So we'll do that in a follow-up email to you all. So please follow up with NASW, Michigan chapter for sure. With that being said, we are coming to the conclusion of orientation. And the last portion is a Q&A with advisors and field placement. So that will run for about 15 minutes. So we'll stay on until about 1:15, 1:16. But if you do not have any other questions, then you're free to go. Your classes, of course, start this Wednesday. Congratulations, you're at the start of your journey. Enjoy, you got this. We got each other in this. It's gonna be a wonderful experience. And go Warriors.